Israel has hit Hezbollah targets in Lebanon with artillery and airstrikes after it intercepted what it said were rockets fired from across the border. Lebanese officials say the bombardment killed at least 2 people, including a young girl. Israel's defence forces released footage of one of the airstrikes in southern Lebanon. The IDF blamed the Iran-backed group Hezbollah for the rocket fire. It has denied the claim. This is the second time rockets crossed into Israel from Lebanon since a ceasefire took effect last year. Blumenfeld is a Middle East analyst at the Johns Hopkins University. Hezbollah denies responsibility for today's rocket fire. What's your take?
Well, I think that's very interesting. No one has claimed responsibility because, as Lebanon's president said, we would like to avoid getting dragged back into a cycle of violence, that devastating war between Israel and Hezbollah. 4,000 Lebanese were killed and over 1 million were displaced. On the other side of the border in Israel, the town where the rockets were aimed at, Metula, only 8% of the population has been able to return. So I think all sides are eager to get back to a peaceful place, but there's a little bit of fluidity now. There's stress on ceasefires across the region. Israel, of course, has launched, relaunched offensive in Gaza, trying to put pressure on Hamas to release the hostages. The United States had a major escalation against Yemen, against the Houthis, who've been attacking global shipping. And so I think what we're seeing here right now is kind of a test drive for both President Trump, who's asserting kind of a peace through strength philosophy in the Middle East, and then Netanyahu, who had really turned the point, turned the tide for Israel against their war against multiple fronts, as they're looking forward to negotiating with Iran on their nuclear program. That's going to happen next week. 2 Israeli senior officials are coming to Washington. So part of this, I think, is bombing people back to the negotiating table and setting a kind of strong table for the United States and Israel as they face down those Iranian proxies and Iran itself.
Of course, the ceasefire in Gaza has collapsed. So would this be a time for Hezbollah to strike? Is it back to a 2-front war for Israel?
Well, I mean, ideally for Hamas, it would be a multi-front war. They called it the Al-Aqsa flood. They were looking for help from, all the regional proxies of Iran. The Houthis certainly are trying. They launched ballistic missiles against Israel. Instead of a flood, I would call it a trickle. All of Israel's enemies, are fairly degraded at this point. It doesn't mean it's been easy, though, for the IDF. The Israel Defense Forces said that they had just over this weekend, over 200 strikes against Syria, Gaza, and Lebanon. So, there's considerable domestic turmoil at home. There's a lot of opposition. The Israelis are war weary. The reservists are tired. They'd like to free the hostages and move on. But the government, the Israeli government feels like this is their opportunity. They're not going to take chances. They were kind of been on defense. They're being very proactive on offense.
Blumenfeld, thank you very much for your analysis from Johns Hopkins University.
Thank you.